Hello, my name is Ben Straits, and I research the absence of the gender wage gap when other factors are considered. Here's a quick outline of my presentation. I'll be going over my topic and motivation, followed by literature review, the connection it has to class, the feedback I got from peer review, and then future research that can be done. The topic and motivation. The gender wage gap has been a central topic throughout our class discussions. Women's wages have been noticed to lag behind men's throughout all the countries in my country study diary, even in a developed superpower country like the United States. Women are making roughly 3/4 of what men are earning. Though it is clear that women are earning less, there may be more to it. This research will investigate the true gender wage between men and women while keeping everything constant. And I think by breaking down the data to this extent, there may be evidence that suggests that there is no gender wage gap when other factors are considered. So the other factors to consider are level of educational attainment, major attained, years of work experience, marital status, number of kids, and age. Those clear that women's median weekly earnings by full-time wage and salary work is less than that of men's, there could be underlying factors that aren't discrimination. So if you look at the graph on the right-hand side, you can see that the percent change in median earnings is getting better for women over time, and that data is only up until 2000, so even more relevant to that, I think it's even better. So for literature review, here's a journal I found, Women in the Labor Market and in the Family by James Smith. Just kind of sum up the abstract real quick. There are two themes in this paper. First, argue that the conventional wisdom of an absence of any substantial labor market progress for women is mistaken. Instead, throughout the century, women's wages have been steadily rising relative to those of men. And that's just something that you could go back to the last slide and notice that by the graph that it is getting better. The second literature review was The Wage Gap Myth by Denise Venable. The wage gap is not so much about employers discriminating against women as about women making discriminating choices in the labor market. An example of that could be when women take maternal leave, or when they do have children, they take a few-year gap. And the paper talks about how when women do take that gap and then try and come back into the labor force, they're 4 years less experienced than someone of the same age and educational attainment and background. And then they continue on to say that these trends in the gender gap and in wage inequality have been extensively studied. However, less attention has been paid to the family gap, the wage differential between women with and without children. And the family gap is something we have talked about. When women have children, and in the United States there is no set maternity leave. However, if there were, I think you would see the gender gap diminish even further. So, and then my third and last literature review was Understanding the Family Gap and Pay for Women with Children. And they just kind of continue saying what I just said. Despite the narrowing of the gender gap in recent years, the family gap in pay between women with children and women without children is, if anything, growing larger. Although women without children have made no gains in the labor market, women with children have no kept pace. It's at least as true today as it was a decade ago that for women in America, the greatest barrier to economic equality is children. So, the connection this has to our class, I feel just gives us a different perspective on like a topic we have discussed so often, and just kind of like a counter argument. And though all the research hasn't been done and I don't have all the figures, I think it does shed some light on some areas to reconsider a little bit. And some of the peer review feedback that I received just kind of helped me narrow down my topic a little bit, and that's just the diminishing gender wage gap as other factors are taken into account, other than just saying that the wage gap is women making 3/4 of what men are earning. And then they also provided various other factors to be considered when looking at gender wage gap issue. And that just kind of ranged from same age and same number of children, etc. And then for future research, like I said, you can gather and analyze the data from the different factors that were listed. And just when you get all that data, you can look for different trends, and you can use graphs and descriptive statistics to find out the relevance of what I'm trying to argue here. There's my reference, and thanks for listening.